Another day, another couple of new teams. Yes, new teams, because we keep reminding you it's the second half. So we're treating it as a brand new season. And we're going to see a battle of Punjab taking on Rajasthan today. This is a reminder of the game that lies ahead. Match number 32. But as far as we are concerned, it's match number 3. Hello and welcome once again to Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partner, My 11 Circle. Well, one more brand new guest coming from another part of the world. Delighted to say a huge hello to Shaun Pollock in the company of myself and Harsha Bhogle. Shaun Pollock, how are you doing?
All right, and you, Gautam? Looking forward to today's game?
Should be an absolute cracker.
I never thought that a person as kind and genial and, of a very even temperament like Shaun Pollock would insist on conditions being put to work on this tournament. And he said there must be a South African playing. And so he insisted that Punjab play a South African today.
Well,
we're hearing.
I see you guys they've managed to recruit a few South Africans. So it'll be interesting to see if they do play. With this talk that maybe the caps have been given out. Has that given us an indication? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, there's been a few chats around the place in terms of which are the possible South Africans. I know Tabraiz Shamsi was mentioned, but we didn't see him sneaking around with a cap around. So we've still got to weigh those options. But let's have a look at the options available for the men from up north. And this will sort of give us an idea even before the toss of what lies ahead there. Rahul will have come back after a successful tour. He'll be looking at where they languish on the table. And like Kolkata, Harsha, they'll be concerned about the points as well as getting that combination right.
And the combination in the first 4, they have so many options. They probably have the most dynamic opening pair going around in Mayank Agarwal and Rahul. Then they've got Gayle, Pooran. They can use Aiden Markram, who's just coming off a pretty decent run of form in wickets in Bangladesh. Now, I mean, nobody scored runs. If you got 20, you're in very good form there. But he's coming off those kind of conditions. So in the top 4, they've got options. Will they continue Deepak Hooda? We don't know how much cricket Deepak Hooda has played recently. Will they again go with Moses Hendricks like they did last time? But they need options in the bowling. So they've got Adil Rashid, Chris Jordan. But I would like to see Fabian Allen play for Punjab the way he plays for the West Indies.
Or even in the CPL.
True. So I ended up saying nothing, did I? So, okay. What were the 4 players?
Where do you get that Markram didn't get more than 20? They had a good series there. They got plenty of runs in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, they did in Sri Lanka.
I kept getting confused the Bangladesh series.
Yeah, the Bangladesh series, yeah. They got runs in Sri Lanka. Quinton de Kock got runs as well. But what I remember is Markram bowling 4 overs for very little. Everyone bowled 4 overs for very little, and he did too.
Yeah, it's something actually South Africa have been working on to try and get a few more overs out of him, particularly the off-spinning option. There's a lot of left-arm options and obviously Tabraiz Shamsi, but to the left-handed batters, they were quite keen. And I watched some of it. It wasn't the most awe-inspiring spinning performance, but he picked up the wickets, and I suppose the golden arms are just as good as anything.
But yeah, I know Gautam, I know we've got to move on, but to see a South African side, 4 overs from Markram, 4 overs from Linda, 4 overs from Fortuin, some 4 overs from Shamsi, and poor old Rabada's getting an over or 2 here and there somewhere. Paulie would have played as a number 3 batsman, I think, in that side.
Yeah, number 3 and maybe bowl 1 over with the new ball.
That is a whole new discussion, Harsha. If you get started on Shaun Pollock and where he'd like to have batted, over the years we've had some very interesting chats on that front. But I know before we started chatting, we were talking about will Gayle play? Is he fit? On his 42nd birthday, you cannot keep him out of the side, Harsha.
Is he 42? Is he 42?
42 today, Christopher Henry Gayle.
Yeah, I mean, first saw him play in 99. We are now 21. So we've been seeing him play for a while, Chris Gayle. Okay, 42. I mean, I knew it was his birthday. I thought he was 40. So he's 42. Can you imagine? He gives himself a birthday present and he'll say the universe boss has decided to give himself a century. That means I'm getting runs. So
yes, yeah, he likes to talk about himself in the third person, which he did in the pre-match interview as well. with a cup of coffee in hand. But what about the opposition? Since you talked about South Africans, Harsha, there's definitely going to be a South African, a very impactful one playing in that particular side. One of the more expensive buys in the history of this tournament, Shaun Pollock, and he'll be looking to justify the big bucks, won't he, old Tipo Morris?
Yeah, he will. You felt for him a little bit because I think he would have felt the pressure of that big price tag when the tournament started. But I think things just started to settle down for him at the back end, just before, it was postponed for that period of time. And he started to find his own. I just hope he's done some really good work in the build-up to the tournament. We'll have to wait and see. He is a confidence player. He gives us off this air of being pretty confident, but underneath, he is a guy who's a little bit more sensitive than you would think, and relies on picking up confidence through some quality performances. So he'll want to hit the ground running. And I think for the Rajasthan squad, I think this break, probably been a good thing for them in many ways. It's allowed them to regroup and also get things back in form. Liam Livingstone, for example, he comes in. I think he wouldn't have been anywhere near the confidence that he has now. And that's also the case in point for Punjab. I think Puran, for once, will come off a good CPL tournament. And normally he comes to the RPL not having played good cricket. But this time he has, and it's like, they basically flew straight across. So, he'll be feeling in good touch. And so for some of them, it'll actually be quite a good experience.
When it comes to form, Harsha, you can't get better form than having just scored 100 in a T20 game. Critical game, a team that had just started losing their way slightly, came back for the Patriots, got a fabulous 100, and everyone would have been watching that and saying, we've got to get him straight into the 11.
You're talking about Evan Lewis?
Evan Lewis.
Because you sort of said, you gave a description, and I thought you were checking whether I'd been following the scores enough or no. And he said, and he got 100. And he got a 17 the next game. He's a slight fellow. He's hit 38 sixes. How big were the outfields in the CPL? He hits it a long way anyway. I've seen him hit a long way.
St. Kitts is not huge. 68 straight, 62 and 58. So
you just do a pitch report. No, but he's, when he first came and played at Mumbai, you could see that he was a bit nervous. He was a bit in awe. When he got that 100 against India in 2017, I think, and he said in the post-match thing, "Oh God, may I please get an IPL contract?" And you could see when he came to play for Mumbai, he was a bit nervous. You could see that, and I don't think he opened in the first game. He batted at 3. And then he lost his way for a couple of years, but he's come back in solid form. He's the number 1 opener for the West Indies at the T20 World Cup. So he's full of confidence. If there's any time he'll score runs, it is this. And he's playing on good pitches. Even if it's a 150, 160 kind of pitch, it's still a good pitch.
Yeah, it was. And it was a difficult game. It was playing against the defending champions, TKR, who are always the team to beat. So a lot of scores to settle on that occasion. I suspect we showed those graphics. I suspect he'll make the nod ahead of Glenn Phillips, impactful as he might be. Just the body language of seeing Glenn Phillips on the ground, cap backwards, walking around, not very purposefully. Those tell a story, just like the caps being handed out, Shaun. But we'll give you the toss news very shortly. But we'll give you the toss news right now. It's KL Rahul who's decided to field first after obviously winning the toss in the company of Simon Dool, who was just with us a few minutes ago. Harsha, very busy man he is.
Yeah.
But it's no surprise, I think, fielding first. For me, it makes so much sense. I don't know how many times we've seen it. Whenever you watch these T20 tournaments, teams battle to get an understanding about how they should approach those first games. It's something that they pick up as the tournament goes along, and then invariably they come out and start to play nicely. But I think once you get back as a unit, you're not sure how fast you should or shouldn't go. And there's some stats about the Dubai Stadium, which is the one of the 3 I prefer the most. 27 matches, batting first, 117. And batting second, 1-10, average 163. But I think if you had to analyze that, batting first in the first few games of the tournament might not be as strong as what you actually think. And I think we've even seen, like last night's game, you win the toss, you decide to bat first. It becomes a bit of a damn squid because you're not sure how to pace it. You lose early wickets and your team's knocked over cheaply. So I think it's a good call. Just allow the team to settle in and get things back on track.
Well, I'm hearing that I might have been proven wrong, Mr. 42 is not going to get his summer of 42. He's not going to be blowing out candles in the middle of the field. That could be huge news.
Is he not playing?
Is he not playing?
He probably stretched too hard in his bed and got a side strain or something.
Well, we'll confirm that to you, but that's exactly what we're hearing early on. Quick one before we analyze it, Harsha. How much of the toss result is about the conditions, the statistics, and about what you as a team like to do? We remember the Sunrisers at one point were put anything on the board, we'll defend it. Is it about that team?
Sorry, you're asking me. I thought,
yes,
there's Polly there. I thought you'll go to Polly first for everything. So I was actually looking at Polly over there. Anyway, since we're talking news, I'll come back to what you were saying. Puran, Markram, Rashid, and Fabian Allen are playing in there. You look at the numbers. Yes, you always look at the numbers. And I think numbers are illustrative. Numbers are not conclusive. Numbers are illustrative. And as Polly said, sometimes the numbers are telling you one thing, but you read through the numbers and say, okay, when were these numbers achieved? Were those numbers achieved in conditions that are similar to the conditions that we have today? If they did, yes, they're a good indicator. But every day is a new day. Today, is it a little more humid? You think I'll get something with the new ball up front? Is it easier batting second? So you look at the numbers, they're illustrative, but I don't think they are a sort of cast in stone conclusion.
Fair point in that, but as I said, this is the point in time, as we've told you about the possible 4 foreigners for Punjab: Markram, Puran, Fabian Allen, and Adil Rashid. So it's going to be an interesting combination to talk about. Birthday Boy will not be playing. So just in case all of you had made your My 11 Circle teams nice and early, put in Christopher Henry Gayle, made him captain, pretty much what I've done. You've got to make changes.
Do you want me and Polly to chat for a while you quickly go and change your team?
Go and make changes to your team, select the match, edit your team if you've come to that point in the day. And remember, there's a big prize up for grabs. So you have to have 11 who are actually playing and get the right captain in as well. 5 crores is the prize money for winning that one. It's absolutely massive. Lots at stake also for the two teams. And we'll talk about both Rajasthan and Punjab. But Shaun Pollock, your reaction, obviously it's probably a fitness issue, but at the end of the day, you've got to get the 11 right. There's no sentiments involved, whether it's somebody's birthday or not.
Yeah, I think that would have been the least of the worries. That would be after the game. They'll get quite excited. But I think Chris Gayle, it must be a proper niggle. I don't see how they would have left him out. He's such an impact player. And he's one of those guys, the opposition wait to see where he's going to slot in when he's going to come out to bat. And they believe the game's not over until he's out of the equation. So it must be a niggle. Coming straight from the CPL, he's probably picked up something and unable to go. So opportunity for Markram to get his go. Big shoes to fill, isn't it? I mean, the style of cricket you have to play to fill the shoes of Chris Gayle is second to none. And I suppose Chris also got those little off spinners from time to time, off darters, should we call it. And maybe Markram will have to do a bit of that today. But one thing they will do is, with the change, they'll definitely get an improvement in the field, because Markram is pretty special in the field. I don't know about the other parts, but definitely he's better in the field.
Do you remember the days, Gautam? Do you remember? I mean, you won't remember the days, but you remember reading about in the Olympics, they used to have a standing high jump and a standing long jump. I think with Chris Gayle, you got a standing off break. I don't think he takes a step. With Markram, it'll be a 3-step off break.
Yeah, you also have standing singles and twos, if such a thing is possible. I mean, if he's batting with someone who's lightning quick at the other end, it's just there's utter confusion. But there's not going to be that happening today. He's going to be sitting on the sidelines and enjoying his side going out there. Quick word on the 4 overseas players, Harsha, from the men in Royal Pink. Rajasthan.
Okay. Rajasthan, where are we? What have Rajasthan done? They've got Evan Lewis, Liam Livingston, Chris Morris, and Mustafizur Rahman are playing. So, I mean, you can't play so many South Africans. So poor Shamsi has to sit out. No Shamsi, no Phillips. So I'm just trying to see. They're playing Fizz. Are they going to play all 3 left-handers, or are they going to play Karthik Tyagi and one of the left-handers between Sakaria and Unadkat misses out? How are they going about it?
Well, we'll answer those questions. Yeah. We were just getting a first reaction onto the 4 overseas versus the 4 overseas. But what we do It is not 4, but 3. We have 3 My 11 Circle picks for you. Smart picks, as we like to call them. Not necessarily every time that we get it right, but we've chosen 1 from Rajasthan, 2 from Punjab. And Evan Lewis, we briefly talked about him, Shaun, but I think we can reiterate that he comes in here with a different sense of confidence than the last time he came to play for a different franchise.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt. As you mentioned, coming off of a decent tournament, some good scores not so long ago. I think just the key for me will be how he adjusts. You talked about the smallness of the grounds he's been playing on. The Dubai Oval is quite sizable. You can often see teams where they lose the same structure and they get caught on the fence a lot. How is he going to be able to adjust his game plan and fit in to this new team? That'll be the answer. But as far as fireworks go, confidence coming in, he's got all that.
Yeah, and 38 sixes in the CPL, leading 6-hitter in the tournament, well ahead of Nicholas Puran, who was at number 2. He hit 11 sixes during the 100 on that Saturday night against the Trinbago Knight Riders. So again, he'll be coming in with confidence. And of course, from the winning team, it doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have just lifted a trophy a week ago, Harsha.
No, it doesn't at all. And the only thing I will say about Evan Lewis is that sometimes, because the stakes are so high in this tournament, you can almost put too much pressure on yourself, saying, look, this is outside of the World Cups. This is the biggest platform. Everyone's watching me. If I do well here, maybe I'll get another big bash gig. Maybe I'll get something in the 100. Maybe I'll get retained by my franchise. Maybe I'll get a better price at next year's auction. So, God, let me do well. Sometimes you can almost G yourself too much if you're coming onto a big stage like this. So that's the one thing I'll be looking out for Evan Lewis. Is he comfortable? I mean, I've seen him get 200s against India, and you think, gee, this little fellow hits it a very, very long way. And he is some player. He's not only a slogger, he's some batsman. But that's the thing I'd like to see about Lewis, whether he's calm, comfortable, whether he's saying, right, I've earned the right to be here.
Yeah, I think Harsha's point is so valid. He comes off, and where he's been successful is in the team where he belongs. He's not looking around his shoulder or over his shoulder to see if he gets picked for the next game. He just fits in. When you become the overseas pro or one of the 4 picks, there's an added pressure that comes with it, because you obviously got other guys in the dressing room who are training, looking for the opportunity, and the responsibility goes onto your shoulders. So people think, well, come on, it can't have that much of a difference, but it does. It plays on the minds of these players.
Well, so we've gone with form for Evan Lewis. We've gone with solidity for somebody who'll be in action fairly soon, with Punjab, who have won the toss, decided to bowl first, and that is Mohammed Shami. Already picked up 8 wickets this season. And, I mean, many words we can use to describe him. Not quite a veteran yet, but certainly a stalwart for both the national side and the franchise, Harsha.
And he went through a phase where he didn't seem what you'd call in inverted commas a T20 bowler. Bhuvneshwar Kumar went ahead of him for a while. Deepak Chahar went ahead of him. But the ability to nail the Yorker, I think, has brought him back. And we'll never forget the 5-run super over that he defended against Rohit Sharma and Quinton de Kock. So against a very good opening pair. But if he can get that Yorker going, look, now he's in the T20 side ahead of some really good players. So I'd be very interested in seeing how he does, whether he's held back for the death in that Punjab side, or whether he's used more up front for those few minutes that the white ball behaves like a cricket ball and moves. So I don't know whether he'll want to use that, or whether they'll use him more at the death when he gets those Yorkers tailing in so well.
Yeah, Shaun, he went through a phase when he was giving a few too many in the death, but he obviously has realized that, and it's something that he's worked on himself.
Yeah, I think it's a mental thing too. I think really has embraced the challenge of bowling at the back end. You got the feeling at one part of his career, he was almost a little bit running scared of being used as that option, and preferred to try and get his 4 overs out a lot earlier and leave the challenge of the death to the other people. Even at the start of one of the tournaments, I think I can remember him disappearing. He had one massive over where ended up costing the team, and then he came back and had that super over. And I think that was the time where he said, actually, you know what, if I just have the mindset, I'm going to do this job, I'm going to try and do it as best I can. He's got great skills. He's quick, he's skiddy, he gets those balls, those Yorkers in. And I think it's just been a mindset change. And since he's had that, I've been impressed by what I've seen.
Yeah, it's the third man in our 3 My 11 Circle smart picks. We'll have to wait a few minutes, half the innings, before he's really into action with bat in hand. Mayank Agarwal, when he gets going, Harsha, he's that kind of a big innings player. He's the kind of person who can put together a T20 100.
And especially because KL Rahul's taken on himself the responsibility of batting through. I mean, KL Rahul goes, 110, 120 early on. If he's batting through the middle and end overs, he bats at 150, 160, 170, thereabouts. So it's Mayank's job now to get a move on early. And it's interesting, he started off as a T20 slogger almost, became a very accomplished test match opener, and then has again come back into being a really free-stroking top-order batsman. And as one of a pair with KL Rahul, two great friends also opening the batting together, they form a very dynamic combination. The only thing they've got to worry about, and I think that's why they've protected the middle order and added someone like a Fabian Allen in there, is to tell the openers, listen, go for it. We still do have people behind you. Nicholas Puran is in good form. Markram's an international player. So you can go for it because one of them has to go for it. And I think that's Agarwal's role.
Yep, certainly we've seen KL Rahul having to switch gears like that. And remember, again, with no Christopher Henry Gale in the lineup, they will also be looking at the fact that six-hitting or potential six-hitting ability will have to be maybe shouldered by someone like Mayank Agarwal, who's never short of boundaries himself. But they will be batting second. So, Shaun, we can start talking about one person who we love to watch. The real question is the fact that we want to see him for a little bit longer.
And that is?
Samson. I thought it was obvious.
He's doing this a lot today. He's sort of assuming that we know where he's headed.
He's throwing us curveballs, isn't he, Archie? He's throwing us a massive curveball.
I thought that was so obvious, Shaun, that I didn't even need to mention it.
Well, I was starting to rack my brain about who you were thinking about. It's been a while since you got to remember how he went in that tournament at the start of it. But, I mean, he is class. And, that one innings at the start of this RPL was fantastic. And they definitely need more from him, particularly missing some of their big players that haven't managed to return. He is, in many ways, the senior statesman there and needs to make those contributions count. It's one thing getting in. But that's the nature of the beast, You used to think T20 cricket, you just come in and whack it around. But there's a big art to it these days, getting yourself in, getting off to a fast start, and then being able to shift through the gears a little bit. I know they're not first, second, and third, more like fourth, fifth, and sixth gear that you just shift between in the T20 innings. But the art of being able to stick around and be there, almost eliminate the risks. From his perspective, I think sometimes, he's the guy who takes on the 80% risk, whereas if he can just restrict it to saying, I'll take on a 50% risk shot rather than the 80% one, he's got a chance of coming off. And I think that's hopefully something that he's learned. And I think that the break actually came at a good time for him because it would give him an opportunity to reassess and now come back and try and get things right.
Yeah, I felt for him because he got picked in Sri Lanka while the rest of the team was in England. And he got those kind of wickets to play on, really slow, low. He would have liked to see a wicket where the ball was coming on and prove to people why he should be number 4 in this Indian side. But he got those slowish wickets that didn't quite work for Sanju Samson. And he can't now turn around and say, put me in that Indian team, though he's expressed disappointment, which is pretty normal. But he can't say, put me back into that Indian team because he's had his opportunities. But the one thing he did, Paulie, and that's what those numbers were showing, is that as the tournament went along, he got back to scoring runs. Otherwise, you see Sanju Samson, he starts the tournament with a flourish and you say, wow, this is a player I want to watch. And then suddenly there's no Sanju Samson scoring runs. So this tournament, I think he said something at the start of installment 1 of this tournament, where he said, I've decided to give myself a few balls. And that's made a huge difference in some of the innings that he's played. He played one very slow innings. There's 102. That's against Kolkata. Because that was a small run chase. They just had to ensure that they were going across the line. Otherwise, once he gets in, look at the strike rates he gets. So even if he gives himself 7-8 balls, he's still going to score at 140, 150 anyway.
But when you talk about matchups against certain teams, that century happens to come against the same opposition he's playing today. So maybe that'll be in the back of his mind and say, can we have one more of those, Shaun?
Yeah, it's just funny how it works. As a player, you just feel comfortable sometimes against certain opposition, and you've got some good memories. You see the guys running into bowl, and you just have a bit more self belief. And it can be just one individual. There can be one specific individual in the opposition who keeps knocking you over and gives you bad vibes about playing the whole team. But there's nothing wrong with those facts and figures when it comes to playing against Punjab. So he'll be pretty excited, and it's the start of the tournament or the second half of the tournament, so he always starts well.
Yes,
it is the start. It is the start, as we discovered with Polly's team. It is the start. They don't like to win the first game, so they've again lost the first game on the restart.
But on the other side of the coin, it's KL Rahul, who it's not just about his starts, it's his finishes. And when it comes to his run chases, certainly he'd be playing a very important role, despite the fact that with the added responsibility of leadership, Harsha, maybe that strike rates come down by about 15 or 20.
It's okay if he then builds on it and finishes the innings with a strike rate of 145, 150, because that's what he's meant to do. So if you're playing on a 140, 145 surface, his approach is still all right. 96 in the power play and then 157 in the middle overs. That's fine. If the 96 in the power play, he's still not out. If he gets out over there, he's used up a lot of deliveries. What he did in 2020 was beyond understanding, and he sort of used to puff his chest out and say, "I don't believe in strike rates," and whatever, which was you're almost conning yourself when you're saying that. But I'd like to see him come back and play shots right up front, because he doesn't have to slog the ball to get off to a really good start in T20. So I'd like to see him go right from the beginning, because I think today they've given themselves a bit of batting support, so it's okay. It's like, when Warner and Bairstow were opening in their prime for Hyderabad, both of them would go for it. So there's no harm in both openers going for it.
I think also what you've got to do is when you look at facts and figures, there's always mitigating circumstances. And how many of the games were played in Chennai where it was difficult to get the ball off the square, never mind go at a positive strike rate. You also look at times and performances where, for example, he might get into a partnership with someone like Chris Gayle, who's going at 200 strike rate. So there's no real need for him to take a big risk. So they do tell a bit of a story, and maybe hasn't as fired as much as he did in the year before. But the change of venue, that could also bring about a change. In Dubai was where he played superbly well, and in Abu Dhabi with the ball coming on nicely. Interesting to see what the surface looks like. So I think those are things that can be sorted out. He's got the ability. It sometimes just goes down to who he's batting with the nature of the pitch and the situation of the game.
Also, I was just informed about his individual strike rate against key bowlers, and he's got very, very healthy 185 against Chris Morris and 161 against Mustafizur Rahman. So those are things, it doesn't necessarily work every single time, but if you've got a bowler you've struck well against, you can bring it to the party again.
That's not healthy, Gautam. That is a mega pack of vitamins. Strike rate of 180 and strike rate of 160 is a mega pack of vitamins. And that's what, he'll get that without seeming to hurt you. I remember that 50 or 14 balls, he's got a 50 of 18, he just goes boom, boom, boom. He just keeps hitting the gaps. And there you are, suddenly he's on 20 in no time. And that is why I think both him and Mayank can go for it. Because I'm just looking down their lineup. They've got support, Markram, Pooran, Huda, Allen. Though actually after Fabian Allen at 6, they fall off the cliff a little bit, with Brar at 7, and then really doesn't matter who comes in after that. So they're backing the top 6 to get the runs. So I might have to correct myself. He might sort of realize that there isn't much at the back end. I saw Fabian Allen, I thought he's 7.
Yep. Well, we will have a look at the lineups for both Rajasthan and Punjab. So I think if we can actually have a look at them and get you out of your suspense. We've told you the 4 overseas players, but it's the players around them that matter. Punjab will be fielding first, and Ishan Porel is the one we talked about, the new name. Everyone else, Harsha, pretty much picked themselves from the first half of the tournament.
They do. I'm very keen to see how Porel does, because he was pretty much the third seamer in that much fated under-19 World Cup side behind Mavi and Nagarkoti. but he could well emerge as a survivor. He's had good seasons in domestic cricket. Apparently, he's still working up a good pace, so he could come in as well. But I'm just looking at what happens to that batting lineup. Harpreet Brar maybe 7, and then what happens after that? Not Arshdeep, not Shami. So will Adil Rashid, Ishan Porel, who bats after that? So really, they don't want to look beyond Fabian Allen at 6. And will Fabian Allen have the freedom to go and be that fearsome finisher that he is? So it's a bit of a gamble with 5 bowlers. Allen as the 6th bowler, Markram as the 7th. But they're playing, I think, a batsman and a half short.
And it's not the first time, Shaun. We've talked about this even the first half of the season for them, where they've sort of packed that top 6. And then if they lose wickets, as Harsha mentioned earlier, it's the old fall off the cliff.
Yeah, I think a bit of a surprise for me, Jordan, that he didn't play, because he adds a little bit of depth to the batting. And normally on these surfaces, when they haven't played, I mean, you saw the other night, they left it pretty green. He might have got some assistance. And then Vishnu, that he didn't come in to play. I suppose Rashid, the experience, and I suppose you can't argue with Anil Kumble with regard to knowing which of the leg spinners he thinks will be effective. But it'll be interesting to go. I think that Dubai surface, it offers a lot of swing through the air. It's almost like a bit of a vacuum, and the heat that's around there, it gets that ball to hoop around. We've seen it so many times. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays tonight. But Jordan was a surprise for me. I thought they would have done everything they could to get him back in.
Well, yeah, the surfaces have been the talking point. We saw the contrast between game 1 and game 2. First one in Dubai, second one in Abu Dhabi. Now we are back in Dubai, and it's red playing royal pink. So let's have a look at the lineup for Rajasthan. Much of a talking point was this selection of the 4 overseas players, Chris Morris plus which 3? That has been answered. But in terms of all the others, another opportunity, Harsha, for Yashasvi Jaiswal at the top, batting first.
Yes, I think this team ticks off more boxes than Punjab does. They've got 2 international new ball bowlers, Morris and the Fizz, Karthik Tyagi, Chetan Sakaria. They've got the spin of Tewatia, a bit from Parag and a bit from Livingston, maybe an over or 2 from Lomror as well. So I think they bat really deep down to Morris, where he'll probably float. So I think this is a more rounded side. Yashasvi Jaiswal is the one. I mean, he's so slight, but I'm looking forward to him, to seeing if he can get off to a good start. These young left-handed opening batsmen are pretty much the flavor of the season.
Yeah, and that top 3, really looking at, Evan Lewis coming into the side. Yashasvi Jaiswal was probably open with him. Then you've got the captain, Sanju Samson, and of course the excitement of the rest of the middle order coming in there.
Yeah, Livingston, especially hearing so much about Livingston that he might actually end up replacing Malan in that England side.
Yeah, this is what he's done in the summer, Shaun, and it's sometimes about the numbers, it's sometimes about the performances, but for those who have actually observed him, when he walks out and expresses himself, that's what makes you go and pick him rather than the actual stats.
Yeah, I mean, we always touch on the fact of X factor. Who's got it? Who puts the opposition dressing room to a bit of a buzz? When they walk to the crease, because you know how destructive they can do, or the damage that can be done by them. And from his perspective, he's had limited opportunities. But if you had to say to him, okay, we're now going to give you a go, and you've come in on the back of your 100 performance in England. And some other of the blast as well. I mean, as a player, this is the time you want to be given your opportunity to really shine and see what you can do. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to see. I mean, he's got a different technique. He's a guy who hangs back and looks to be destructive. In the middle overs, are the spinners the ones who can maybe put him under a little bit more pressure than he was put in England, where he can just stand and deliver some of those medium paces? We'll have to see if he can adjust, but. Definitely a bit of buzz and excitement around him and his abilities at this stage. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes.
Yeah, Adil Rashid to Livingston might be a good contest. Rashid to Livingston in those middle overs.
They'll know each other well. But Harsha, very quickly time to introduce Shaun to our PTP concept. Day 1, we were having a very casual chat about players who have a point to prove. And we decided to try and pick out lots of players. One person today, I think, Harsha, I suspect, Arshdeep Singh, Would he get into your PTP 11?
Almost sort of knocking on the doors of that PTP 11, given that there were so many people. Did he go as one of the as one of the sort of reserve bowlers to Sri Lanka? I can't quite remember, but this is definitely a point to prove 11. I'd like Riyan Parag to deliver some performances rather than be talked about. He's more talked about than delivery at this stage. Shivam Dube has not been picked here either. So if you look at an entire tournament and India point to prove 11, then from here, I see Sanju Samson, Rahul Tewatia. And if Arshdeep can continue to bowl well at the death, as he's done quite often for Punjab, then maybe Arshdeep as the third in an India perspective, a point to prove 11. Because Tewatia, remember, was picked and then they said he's not fit enough. And it's almost as if he changed his postcode and the letters weren't delivered to him. I mean, the equivalent of that. No one delivers letters anymore, but the equivalent of that.
Yeah, well, that's... we'll continue to develop on that concept of who has a point to prove. Not just the Indians. I think it'll be interesting as and when we try and get overseas players who have points to prove to their respective national teams with that T20 World Cup coming up at the back end of this tournament.
It's a fair point because of, exactly as you said, because of the T20 World Cup coming, it's a fair point for people to say, someone like a Livingston might say, or someone like a Moeen Ali might say, for example, you know what, I'm actually playing for Chennai, but Mr. Morgan, this is where I play really well at number 3. Then Livingston bats at 4, and we've got a much better side. So I agree 100% that there's a few messages being sent out to national teams as well, saying, look, this is how good I am.
Yeah, Moeen Ali certainly has a very different role for England as he does for his franchise in yellow. But we shall see if Owen Morgan is listening or not.
What about Chris Morris? I often said Chris Morris is India's South African in the tournament. He's not a South African. He doesn't play much, I'm told, in South Africa. But I cannot imagine a South African full strength 11 team not having Chris Morris in it. Is it fitness issues? Is it that he doesn't play that much there? Because they just so need a player like Chris Morris in that side.
Yeah, he's just totally out of the mix. He doesn't play at all, really. He plays our T20 franchise competition, and that's about it, just to keep things ticking over. His full focus is on the RPL. And yeah, I mean, he's just been out of the plans. You know, the name gets thrown around every once in a while, but there's not even much discussion that goes about it anymore because he's just permanently not in the mix.
All right, just to wrap up, as we're all set to start this game between Rajasthan and Punjab, somebody who's never out of the mix, even if Chris Morris might be for South Africa, is Joy Bhattacharya. If the 3 names on this list are Azhar Andani, Varun Thamotharam, and Paul Sterling, Harsha, you're going to enjoy this one. Then whose name is first on this list?
Joy Bhattacharya is my answer. Joy Bhattacharya's name is first on this list. It's one of those days. I think we need to give Joy a lot more work to do, because when he's got so much time, he starts trawling into places that we've never known. What are that? John Parkin. I'm never going to let him forget John Parkin. Nottinghamshire second 11 was the answer to one of the questions. I think Paulie's looking really interested in those 2 names. I think he might.
John Parkin, by the way, was at the non-strikers end when Garfield Sobers hit Malcolm Nash for 6 sixes. So that's what the question. Yes. So that's what. Yeah,
and he had pads where all the 3 buckles were. He had back pads, all the 3 buckles were put as well.
So let's. Before we wrap up, I'm going to give you 10 seconds each for a prediction for Rajasthan's 20-over score. Shaun?
157.
157. I'll go next. Harsha, I'll give you a nice little fence to sit on. I'll go for a 169.
No, I wanted to say 168. Oh, I want to score around there. 168.
Fair enough. That's it. Courage of conviction. Conviction.
We'll give you from 63 to 68, and Gautam, you take from 69 to 75.
There you go. That's how it works. If you have the courage of your conviction like Harsha, and you're also equally a cricket nut, a cricket fan, a cricket tragic, then not only should you be listening to our show, but you should also subscribe to Cricbuzz Plus, because there's plenty there for the cricket fan to savor, to feast on, just like the feast of cricket we're going to be bringing you throughout this month and beyond. The game's already underway, gentlemen. Thank you, Shaun Pollock. Thank you, Harsha Bhogle. We'll have much more Cricbuzz Combox in the 10th over, and we'll be back to wrap it up in the mid-innings. This is Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partner, My 11 Circle.